Welcome to another edition of Inside Town Hall. I'm Jim Cameron, your host and the program director of TV 79. And you, as a faithful viewer, know that this is a program where we talk about how Darien town government operates. We have a special guest today. You have seen her at meetings. You've probably not heard her. Well, she speaks a great deal at meetings, but you've always wondered, who is this person? Who is this person that's talking? Kate Buch, our town administrator, is joining us on the program today. Kate, welcome to Inside Town Hall.
Thanks, Jim.
Now, you are in the process of getting ready to leave Darien town government. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we want to talk about your job, but also talk a bit about you. Now, how many years total have you worked for the town of Darien?
In total, 26. I was here for 2 years in the mid 90s, and then came back here in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you are retiring from Darien, but you're going on to bigger and better things, right?
I'm taking a similar role with the town of Greenwich.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk a little bit about your background, your history. I understand you have a family history in politics.
I do. My father was the first selectman in Bethel. He'd been involved in other roles, but he was the first selectman when I was in high school and in college. And my mom actually also served on the Board of Finance there.
And did all of that inspire you to get involved in town government?
It absolutely did.
Wonderful. And what did you study in school?
Accounting.
Accounting. That works, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And when did you come to Darien, and what was your first job?
My first job with Darien, I came to Darien in 94 as then it was titled finance officer. Stayed for 2 years, left for a bigger city, and then came back in 2000 when the role had been vacated. I think they appointed somebody who stayed only 6 weeks and went to Greenwich. And I called Peter Curry, who was the town administrator at the time, and I asked if they would be interested in considering me to come back. And they were. So I came back as the finance director and did that for 15 years.
And then you became town administrator.
I did.
Now, Darien does not have a mayor. We have a first selectman.
Same thing.
We have the RTM. We'll talk about them in a moment as well, too. But what does the town administrator do?
I'm really like the chief operating officer. I handle day-to-day operations, but I have a very broad set of responsibilities. I'm the chief labor negotiator. I'm the risk manager. I run parking. I oversee the website. There's an awful lot that I do that I think people are not aware of. And I manage the department heads and full-time staff.
And full disclosure, I should point out that Ms. Buch is also my boss. Controls the purse strings for TV 79. So,
well, not directly.
Very nice to her today on the program. Now you coordinate all the different town departments, but your powers are really described in the town charter.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't know what the town charter is. Can you explain that?
It's a document that sets forth the structure of the government, how things are operated, who does what, who has what powers. It outlines the budget process, a lot about finance, but every town has one, and it is the basis under which we operate.
And you don't set policy.
No.
Who sets policy for the town that you then administer?
The Board of Selectmen.
But you have to make sure that they're staying within the guidelines of whatever the charter says, right?
The charter, state laws, federal laws, yeah.
You also administer all the towns and departments. How many departments are there? How many employees are there that work for the town on the town side, not Board of Education?
Individual departments, I think there's about 12 or 14. There's 150 or so full-time employees, another like 35 permanent part-time, and then we always have seasonal, and that doesn't include the elected officials.
Right. The only elected official I think that gets compensated is the first selectman. Is that
That
true?
is not true.
Who else?
The tax collector,
Hmm.
the town clerk, the treasurer, and the 2 registrars of voters.
Okay. Point well taken. She knows her town very well. Um, with the town employees, you also have to, as you said, as chief negotiator, you have to deal with unions. How
Yes.
many unions are there in Darien town government?
We now have 4.
And they represent what parts of town operations?
There's the police union. There's the Public Works and Parks and Rec union, which represents the highway crew, sewer crew, Parks and Rec crew. There's the town hall union, which is primarily the clerical and non-supervisory staff, like the zoning enforcement officer, building inspectors. And then we now have a dispatchers union.
At the police department.
That is at the police department.
Right. Um, now, the town's full-time employee headcount, you hear a lot during the budget process about FTEs, full-time employees. First of all, why is that of concern in the budget process? What is there about a full-time employee as opposed to a part-time employee that raises everybody's eyebrows on the Board of Finance?
Benefits. The benefit cost can be 30-35% of the salary cost. And we did an analysis a few years back. Adding a full-time employee, when you think about a 20-year life, working for the town, it's of a similar cost as a capital project. So it's something you really need to consider carefully when you do it.
And once a full-time employee is added, while it may not be that individual, that job pretty much stays, right? I mean, it's hard to pull back from a full-time employee position.
Well, it's not that it's hard. I mean, it's perfectly legal. If you no longer have the work, you can eliminate positions, but we're pretty careful about adding, and it's been rare that we have ever pulled back, had a need to.
What kind of benefits do the full-time employees get working for the town?
Medical insurance, dental insurance, life insurance. Depending on when you were hired, you get a pension, depending on your bargaining unit and when you were hired. Newer hires are getting a defined contribution pension, but older hires still have a defined benefit. And then, of course, there's sick and vacation time. You might get tuition depending on your role. There's a lot of little things, uniforms, vehicles.
The town employees, they tend to stay for a long time, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Why is that?
Well, it's a good place to work. It's a steady job. It's a secure job. But, it's also with a pension, with the defined benefit pension, there comes a point where you would be giving up so much if you were to leave.
And the head count on FTEs, full-time employees, has increased over the years. Why are we seeing more full-time employees added to the town roster?
So lately, where we've added has been in fire marshal's office. We've gone from part-time inspectors to them converted to full-time inspectors. That's a response to the redevelopment going on in town and the increase in multifamily dwelling units. So every single unit in a multifamily dwelling has to be inspected every year. And that takes time. And the increase has been such that we've had to hire 2 additional full-time. I would expect over the next couple of years, there'll be at least a 3rd full-time added as we continue to have more dwelling units added. We've added another sanitarian in the health department in response to the increased numbers of places like restaurants and nail salons, things that need inspections on a regular basis. And then the police department, with the Accountability Act, certain requirements changed for them. There's been with the advent of body cameras. There's a lot of work to be done when somebody asks for video of an incident, and it can only be done by somebody who's a certified police officer. So we have added 2 positions there in the last 2 years.
Kate Buch is our guest today on Inside Town Hall. She is the town administrator for the town of Darien, at least for a few more weeks before she moves down I-95 to another job. You mentioned that you coordinate with all the town departments. How do you do that? There's so many different moving parts in town government in Darien. How do you make sure everybody's kind of moving in the same direction?
Well, we have monthly staff meetings where all the department heads come together and we update one another on what is going on, what's happening, which is a great place for people to find out things that they need to know about. We also have 2 offsite sessions a year where we do training. Usually it's for the department heads and then for those second in command people. That's usually centered around budget or personnel. Both of those things really have helped build a sense of team. And I think the thing is, we have good people. We have really good department heads who are, they have tremendous expertise in their fields, but they're also nice people. They like one another. So it's really, I think, that sense of a team, that, the common goal, that everybody works well together.
One of the things that you were able to institute during your term as town administrator was reducing the work week from 5 days a week for town employees to 4 days a week. Now they're still putting in 40 hours, right?
35.
35. Why did you go to a 4-day work week?
Yeah, it started actually with a proposal from the fire marshal's office to go to a 4-day work week and expand their office hours so that they could have time before the rest of the world came in, where they could meet with builders or review plans to have some quiet time. And we realized that for people who commute long distances, a lot of our department heads do not live locally. They come from, Milford, West Haven, up north, like Newtown. So people have an hour plus commute. And if you're only commuting 4 days a week, it's more palatable. So we put it into place. We actually negotiated with the town hall union because they were the other group that would be impacted by it. And they were very positive about it. We put it into place a little over 4 years ago. And it really has been a benefit. Employees generally like it very much. It has been a selling point in attracting department heads. We've had a couple of the more recent hires that pointed to that as one of the reasons why they were interested in Darien.
But having town hall closed on Friday has not presented a problem for residents of the town to transact business with the town?
During COVID, we put an awful lot of stuff online that made that easier. The building department and the fire marshal's office they're not open to the public on Fridays, but the inspectors are working. So in those 2 departments, some people will work Tuesday through Friday and the others work Monday through Thursday. So you can always get your inspections done on a Friday if need be. So generally, we still have people who show up at town hall on Fridays and are surprised that we're closed. But generally, the fact that so much is available for them to do remotely, it has not been a big problem.
And this all started before COVID. It wasn't a reaction to COVID.
Correct.
But it seems to have meshed with the new kind of work from home philosophy. I mean, Fridays, looking at the parking at the train stations, they're empty. I mean, the parking lots are empty. A lot of people are working from home. So our whole attitude toward work, I guess, has changed as a result of COVID. Let's talk about COVID because that's going to be something for your memoirs, I'm sure, to write about. What are your memories of the COVID crisis? Jamie Stevenson was first select woman at that point, right?
And she did a tremendous job leading during COVID. I think one of my first memories is, we knew we were going to have to go to slightly less staffing, to go like alternating days. We had a big meeting, everybody down in the auditorium, and we're going to go to this, blue team and green team. And when you're on, we get back up to our office and we find out that the governor is saying only essential people. We're like, okay, switch. There was a lot of that. Just like you had to just, things would come up and you had to just do it. And I think, we learned a lot about people who were the doers, who weren't. And like I said, Jamie did a tremendous job doing things that, shouldn't have been her responsibility to do during COVID as first selectman. Our office staff, Linda and Karen very well. Our former HR director, Lori Dunn. The four of us did an awful lot. We were just here working. We never closed. We were just doing things, and just the employees who were willing to take it on. And people like the building inspectors, we're asking them to go into their homes, other people's homes during COVID. And they did it. And the town clerk staff, they were just amazing because they were like the only ones around who were still serving people. We would, meet the citizen at the door, walk them down to the office. They would get their licenses, whatever they needed done. But it was a lot. It was a lot. I spent time with Beth Paris during then, going to handing out the lunches to the seniors, which was, to see how happy the seniors were to be getting out and talking to people. It was, that was terrific. And then, we reopened pretty early compared to other people. We reopened in June of 2020. And we actually did not have transmission within town hall until sometime in 2023. Which was
no cases spread in town hall, you're saying?
No cases spread in town hall until one day somebody in the planning department got it. And the next thing you knew, the whole department was down. But that was the first time that we had it in town hall.
And COVID also brought us this technology we're using today, Zoom. People were able to conduct a lot of town business, I guess, working from home. Does anybody still work from home for the town of Darien?
Only in unusual circumstances, like if somebody needs to be out for medical reasons, but they can work, we will make arrangements for them to work from home. Or like during a weather emergency, people can work from home. Mm-hmm. So there's no one who does it on a regular basis.
Kate Buch, our guest today on Inside Town Hall. She is the town administrator for the town of Darien. Now, you mentioned that one of the jobs you held before was finance director, and you coordinate rather closely with Jennifer Charneski, who is the town finance director. Why is that important? Why do you need to know what's going on in the finance department so much?
It's, well, I think I'm prejudiced, but I think it's the most important, or one of the most important departments in town, because if they don't do it right, we're in trouble. And Jen, we talk a lot. She really is, she's very knowledgeable. She's someone that, a person that I turn to when I need a second opinion or I want to run something by her. There's a couple department heads that I can do that with. If I need someone to just be truthful with me, go to Jen. We're very lucky to have her.
And is she kind of lucky to have you as a former finance director?
I don't know.
Sensitive to the job and the challenges?
I think that's got to be awkward sometimes to, because sometimes she's changing things that I did. But I've always been okay with it. It was her department to run, and I didn't want to stick my nose in it.
Now, the town's fiscal year starts on July 1st.
Yes.
And by then, the town has to have an approved budget. But when does that budget process actually get underway?
Most people start like October, starting to put their budget together. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Ed Gentile hasn't already started his.
The Director of Public Works.
Director of Public Works, yeah.
Yeah.
But most people start in October. We require the budgets be submitted to my office or, to the finance department, but in December.
So a town department works up a wish list, a sample budget, and they have to run it past you first or the finance department?
Well, it's entered through software that the finance department manages, but it runs, I do the first cuts. So, finance department is the staff for that.
And we'll get to the Board of Finance in just a second here, but if the Board of Finance is sort of, let it be known that we will have no more than a 3% increase this year, and a town department comes to you and said, I need a 10% increase because I gotta buy this piece of equipment and I gotta have a new full-time employee. What's the negotiation process there? She laughs now, but
well, yeah, the first selectman, the finance director, and I meet with every department, and we go through all their requests to give them an opportunity to explain it to us. And we really ask a lot of questions, try to understand why they want that 10% increase, why they want that new employee. I also try and be honest with them if I'm not going to approve it, or if I think it would be a hard sell. I try and be upfront with them, tell them, like, if they need to get us more information to sell something. Data is important. Presenting, like with the fire marshal and the increased positions there. Bob Buch, our fire marshal, was able to show, here's the number of units we're going to have to inspect. Here's how long each inspection takes. These man hours. So he was able to show the absolute need for those additional positions.
what if it's a piece of equipment? You give me an example of a piece of equipment, but some of these things are really expensive, like
Yes.
fire engines are really expensive. How do you budget for something like that? I guess that there's sometimes they're going to wear out and you got to anticipate it. But if you're talking about $1 million fire engine, is that coming out of the general tax revenue, or is that something that gets bonded? And who makes that decision?
Well, so fire trucks, we used to actually save for them every year. We would save up and build up a reserve for them. With something that big, we have a replacement plan that the fire departments work on together with the fire commission. So they tell us when they anticipate each piece of apparatus is going to need to be replaced based on its estimated useful life. Those do, this current Board of Finance has taken the philosophy of they're going to bond those. So it does come out of tax revenue, but basically over 20 years. Other big things, like we had a loader in this year's budget, was about $400,000. Those kind of things. Also, Public Works will show us, when they expect all this equipment to be needed. We do a 6-year plan. So we have a sense going out of what we're going to need over the 6 years, not just for equipment, but other, like park and rec projects, where they want to replace equipment or rebuild fields and things like that. And everybody has to submit a capital request form. They have to tell us why they need it. What other options did they look at? Is it required by state law? If there's a return on investment, what is that? How will we know that this has been a success? And we look at where they get their numbers from. How reliable is the quote they gave us for the budget? Did they actually have estimates from a vendor? What else have they got on their plate? If they've got 10 projects from last year that they haven't finished, maybe we don't add as many next year.
And once you have approved a budget after working with all those town departments, that budget then goes to the Board of Selectmen. Is that right?
Yes. And I don't look at it as my approving a budget. I'm proposing a budget to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Right. So that's the next step.
And the Board of Selectmen then goes through the budget book, which is about the size of a Manhattan phone book.
It doesn't exist anymore.
It's all electronic?
It's all electronic, yeah.
Another good innovation. Yeah. And they go through the same process and ask questions about all the proposals and why did you cut this? Do they know what you've cut, or do they know that, no, maybe they don't know what you have cut?
Well, they can see because they have access to the budget software, so they can go in and look at each and every line item. And we do request that department heads build their line items from zero. So they tell us, if they're asking for $5,000 in, some account, build it up from zero. So they can see what I've cut. I can also print out a list for them of here are the adjustments I made.
And does the Board of Selectmen sometimes put things back in that you have cut?
Yes.
All that work, all that trimming, and here they come along spending somebody else's tax money, right?
That's
Now,
their prerogative.
Right. And now once the Board of Selectmen has approved its budget, where does it go?
Board of Finance.
And once again, the Board of Finance does the same diligence going through the whole process?
Yeah, and they try and follow our meetings, as does the RTM members. So they don't have to ask as many questions. And we have worked very hard to have them filter their questions through Jen and through me, so that we're not forcing the department heads to come out for so many meetings, especially because at a certain point, it's not really a department head's budget anymore. Once I've made the recommendation, that's up to me to defend it. When the Board of Selectmen has made changes, it's up to them to defend it.
And after the Board of Finance has taken a pass at it and taken out its blue pencil and maybe added a couple things back, but cut a few more things, where does the budget go then?
Then it goes to that body of which you're a member, the RTM.
And the RTM does its diligence.
Yes.
And it's not an officially approved town budget until the RTM votes. And
that's correct.
Usually in May, if I remember correctly.
It's the second Monday in May.
So from roughly October through May, you're involved with the whole budget building, editing, cutting, adding, and approval process.
Yes.
So that takes a lot of your day.
Well, once it goes to the Board of Finance, it's not as big a part of my day. But yeah, it takes a good part of your day. It's pretty important.
Now, funding the budget from the town involves not only tax revenue, but occasionally you're going to luck out and get some sort of a state grant, and you spend time chasing after reimbursement by the state government. How do you know that there are grants available, and how do you apply for those?
Well, there's some of them that are statutory. So we just get them by virtue of our existence, like the Town Aid Road Grant. It's based on the number of improved roads we have, or mileage of improved roads, or the school grants are generally formula based. Other grants, we will get notifications from the state. We will be notified from CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, that they're available. And we take a look at them, evaluate whether or not we think we can qualify or get them. And then we, you do the work to put them in. It's not onerous most of the time. Depends on the grant.
Does Darien get most of what it applies for? I mean, do you think we get our fair share, or does Hartford, and I mean Hartford town government, the state government in Hartford, do they kind of say, oh, Darien, they don't need this money, they're just filthy rich?
It depends on what kind of grant it is. If it's a need-based grant, we're likely not going to get it. But we've gotten STEEP grants, which are a small town economic
incentive plan.
Yeah.
No, that's an
we got a STEEP grant to do the landscaping at Highland Farm. That was not need-based. It was, they had very specific parameters that year of the kind of project they were looking for. And that fit very nicely. We've gotten neglected cemeteries grants many years. They're very small grants, not need-based. We just basically need to have a plan how we're going to use the money. So it depends.
And also during COVID and after COVID, we got a fair amount of money from Washington, did we not?
We sure did. We sure did.
Including the ARPA grant. What was
The ARPA
ARPA?
grant. Yeah.
American Recovery Plan.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but yeah, we got quite a bit of money from that.
Wow. Kate
Yeah.
Bush, our guest today on Inside Town Hall for her first and final interview on TV 79. I don't know how she's avoided us all these many years, but
Skill.
in the slippery. But in the moments we have left, let's give you a moment to reflect on your years in office and what your successes were, what disappointments you may have as you head your way down I-95. What are you reflecting on in these final days in office?
Um, it's going to be hard to leave the people. I've worked with really good people here, and but we've done some good things. I mean, I think we handled COVID as well as anybody. Um, and it's things like, you know, buying Highland Farms, buying Great Island. Those were awesome, awesome things. But you know, it's also some smaller things like 10 years ago, the front entrance to town hall was not accessible. We had stairs. And I worked with the Public Works Department to get the ramps put in outside and inside to improve the access, which actually also then allowed us to make the building more secure for employees by restricting access to the rear of the building.
Was that required by the federal government, or was that something you wanted to take the initiative?
It was something we wanted to do. It was not required.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tried to do other things to make the building more accessible. But I am going to miss being part of Great Island. That's
You want to talk about Great Island for a moment, because
yeah,
that
sure.
was that involved a huge amount of work over a very short period of time. Can you remind us about the timing that was involved with that?
Oh boy, I'm not sure I remember all the timing. I forget when it first came on the market, but Monica said, you know, she wanted to do it.
And your heart fell. I mean,
No, no. The first time that had been put on the market, when it was the whole property, I went to Jen and was like, okay, if we were to buy it, what's the debt service going to look like? And but then it came off the market. When it came, it was like, yeah, we have to do this. Monica took Marcy Minnick, me, and there was at least one other person. Oh, Mike Feedy was with us, the building official. We went out to see it, you know, when we were still, you know, in the process of trying to acquire it. And I remember just walking out there and saying to Marcy, saying like, you know, we have to do this. And I said, I don't care if we have to bring the entire RTM out here to see this. We have to do this. You go out there, you know, for the people who haven't seen it yet, you understand when you're out there why we had to buy it. We could not let that become developed in private. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so yeah, there was a lot of work and a lot of strategizing. And I think the family was very interested in the town buying it, which helped. Yeah, it was.
so you not only had to negotiate the purchase price,
I
but,
didn't.
but
Monica did.
yes, Monica did. Monica McNally, who was then the first select woman,
Yes.
negotiated a price, and then she had to sell it to the RTM.
Yes.
And the RTM, I think, had maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks
Yeah, it was
maximum.
not right.
And I'm a member of the RTM, and I remember standing up at one of the meetings and just talking about the process that the town RTM committees had held something like 28 meetings in the course of about a week, all of which were
Yeah,
carried by TV 79, mind you,
which was
and
helpful.
was they therefore able to debate and take a final vote on it. Did you have fears that all of your work was going to be for naught if the RTM got cold feet and didn't approve this?
No, no. I mean, we worked very hard on the presentation. There was one night I was away at a conference in Texas, and I was on the phone as Monica was making her presentation, listening to it, to the Board of Selectmen. But we worked very hard. She worked very hard. It was amazing. Our staff worked very hard. But you could see the people getting up and speaking at the town meeting when we did a public presentation, and just the people who would stand up and say, I think it was Frank Kemp, who listed off the other opportunities that the town had not had.
Or passed on.
Or passed on.
Yeah.
And you could see that, there was the support. There was the support to do this.
I believe Joe Warren got up and said 2 words: buy it. But there were people that were really concerned about the long-term financial implications. What was this going to do to my taxes? People still think that the cuts at the Board of Education were directly tied to the purchase of Great Island.
And absolutely not. Absolutely not. One had nothing to do with the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, the taxes will be going up as a result. But it is worth it. And, we all won't be around here in 100 years, but 100 years from now, they're going to be, people are saying they made the right decision.
Hear, hear. Any other successes that you're going to remember, tell your grandchildren about?
Well, I'm not going to be having grandchildren, so no, I think, there's so much we've done. And I'll tell you, when I came back to Darien, I had been working at Morgan Stanley. And one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to government is that money was just not the big driver for me. It's being able to look out and say, we built a school and I was part of that, because I did my job, that school got built, that park was purchased. Yeah, it's the totality of over 26 years of things that I was involved in that, a lot of people don't know, and that's okay. I can look and see and know, because I did my job, that happened, and I'm proud of that.
And you're still going to come back a little further north on 95 from time to time and drive around, take a peek at what's going on.
Sneak on to Great Island.
Sneak on. Shh, don't talk about that. You're not supposed to divulge that. It'll be open to the public in a much more accessible way shortly.
Yes.
In a while, in an appropriate period of time as well, too. Well, Kate Buch, town administrator for the town of Darien, retiring after many years of service to the town. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for your service. You will be missed.
Thank you.
And I wish you nothing but much success, even if it is in Greenwich and beyond.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you, our faithful viewers. You have watched yet another edition of Inside Town Hall.